My name's Chris.
And I'm Kristie.
This is the Washing Up Podcast, and we are back for Cookie Week.
Oh, yes. And who stole them from the cookie jar?
Anne.
It was Anne.
It was Anne.
And I did love that opening sketch. I mean, what was... Oh, that's right. You said to me, because we had it paused before we began watching it, and you're like, oh, wow, Alan's showing a bit of, Gilligan. And I'm like, sit right back, and you'll hear a tail. And he was sitting right back.
Waiting for a tail. And Anne had a tail.
She did. Not about, people setting off on a trip, but that'd be hilarious.
I like the idea of a cookie-based version of that story. I mean, I feel like I would have washed up on that PEI Cookie Island.
And Bruno would be the skipper.
Yep. This could be good. Okay, Bruno's the skipper.
Kyla totally has the Marianne look.
Yeah. Who's the millionaire and who's his wife?
I feel Steve could pull off a good millionaire.
Elena?
Yes.
Wife? Yes. Yep. Okay. The movie star?
It's got to be Amanda, because, just because
Which means congratulations, because the rest of you are all the rest. I love that song because...
We need a professor.
Oh, yeah, we need a professor as well, we're right.
Well, Stephen's doing his third degree.
Third degree, so we'll do that.
There's the professor.
That could work, but at Dougal as well, so they could both be... They could take it in turns.
Yes.
They could shift. But what I love about that song, just quickly, and again, I know you didn't think we were going to open up with a conversation around the Gilligan's Island theme song, but here we are. Mm-hmm. Is it's almost written in such a way where they decided that if the show wasn't working, other people could wash aboard the island?
Yes.
The movie star, all the rest. Because then they changed it to the Professor and Marianne and put them in the song. Because they were all the rest originally. And all the rest ended up being two other people. Which, let's face it, on a deserted island is a lot of extra people to find washed up.
I know.
Unless it's lost and you find them all under the island.
That's very true.
One of my favourite comedy bits of all time was talking about Lost and talking about, they were the only people on the island, except for these people, and these people, and these people, and these people. And the question was, where did they land? Manhattan Island? So we're not going to go through what the actual ending for Lost was, though, because spoilers, and I know it was out that long ago, but I just like saying it.
Yeah.
They were all dead. Anyway.
They should have got Bruce Willis on there. He could
have seen them all.
He could have seen them
all.
He could have found them all. Told them what was going on.
We are not just talking about baking. In fact, we're not talking about baking at all.
It's Bruce Willis, right, wanting to escape the rat race, goes to this nice, what he thinks is a completely deserted island, and all he has is these dickheads running around,
left, right, and centre
pressing buttons, looking for the Dharma Initiative.
There's people hunting other people on the island. He's like, I came for relaxation. And when they come, he goes and pick him up. He's like, did you get everyone else? And they went, who? And he's like, oh, not again. Anyway, let's get to something that I was a bit concerned about, actually. Pavilion construction.
The rickety
doors. Now, first of all, Amanda did try to open them the wrong way. But secondly, they had that look of, do you remember how The Simpsons present Cletus's screen door?
Yes.
Where it's like banging on the... Yes, bam, bam, bam. Or Cletus's screen door. Or when you've got that episode of The Simpsons where Burns and Smithers have to go to the power plant and shut it down. Yeah. And they go through all those really sort of convoluted ways. And they get to the thing and there's just like a rickety door in the thing.
My dad has one of those doors at his place. The whole bang, bang, bang. And if you don't secure it down, the wind picks up. Well... There goes the peace and tranquility of the country air.
But it's really funny because, they get to the door and Amanda goes to open it the wrong way, first of all.
That's probably what did it.
But it looked so rickety. I mean, I've seen the wooden beams on the Australian shed. They're solid. You could when they deconstruct that thing, because as we found out, it's actually just a giant shell. It's a tent.
It's a tent. But the shed is a tent.
The shed is a tent. I know.
It's the Matrix.
Inception. But those wooden beams, when they pull that down, I imagine if someone broke onto set and wanted to cause a problem, you could kill them with a wooden beam.
Yeah, maybe those doors were there because they're actually from a film prop, and you can actually pick them up and smack them over someone's head, and that wouldn't injure them.
Maybe they were ready just in case.
Yeah, exactly. I'm just thinking, left of field.
No one else was left of field.
I know.
Icebox sandwiches. They were quite left of field as a challenge. So, icebox sandwich cookies. We don't
have them here in Australia.
No, which you would think we would, given how hot it is.
Exactly. Or they'd be called esky.
They'd be esky cookies.
Esky cookies or freezer cookies.
Yeah, so...
Which is not something you want to eat.
No,
really.
you don't. You really don't want to eat them.
Yeah. Apologies, it is the lorikeet hour here. We have a lot of guests out on the balcony.
So you're getting nature in Australia.
Nature.
You're getting a lot of nature.
And look, these ones won't kill you, so that's a bonus.
Yeah, it's the only nature that won't kill.
Something I noticed about the icebox cookies, though, is the techniques they use, because I'm there going, oh, this is like polymer clay, like cane making. So, you construct your doughs in different, or your clay in different layers to create shapes that you can then just chop up.
Now, you've had a bit of experience doing not only polymer clay, but polymer clay with bake-off people.
Yeah, so Robert taught me how to make a nice rose.
Robert from Australian Bake Off, of course. Friend of the podcast.
Friend of the podcast. So I reckon I could just do... I don't see the point in making polymer clay icebox cookies because they're not edible.
Not edible.
So maybe I will have a go.
There you go.
At cookies, at biscuits as we call them.
You can have a go at it and use the same technique and style, and just use like the pasta roller for like
actual food.
As opposed to when you use the pasta roller for your polymer clay and broke it.
Okay.
I'm not bitter at all, but somebody might have broken my pasta roller making polymer clay.
Is that the axe grinding again? There we go.
Well, it's certainly not the pasta rolling.
You bastard.
Because you broke the pins. Anyway, there's a lovely polymer clay rose here, but incense holder. But at what cost? The answer is at lasagna's cost. So just want to put that out there. Anyway, let's get into the challenge. You had 2 hours and 15 minutes, which is about the length of one of our intros.
Yes. Talking about everything but bake-off.
And they then wanted you to make it into ice cream sandwiches. So that was what they wanted. They wanted to make
freezer box sandwiches.
No, they wanted to make it. They said make it into ice cream sandwiches.
Oh, like to have a filling in them.
Yes, to make a filling.
Gotcha.
Now, what I loved was they cut to, and I was expecting everyone to go, "Yep, know these, love these, blah 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 blah." Cut to Dougal. That is what we're doing.
Big question mark at the end.
It was right up there. Again, there's a lot of Simpsons references that I sort of parallels that I saw in this episode, and one of them was when he said that's what we're doing. It's very much when they had Buzz Aldrin on, and they go, "The second man to walk on the moon." He goes, "Second comes right after first." Dougal also had a bit of a hint of the old Gills about him in that one. Don't forget old Gil. The wolves are at old Gil's door. So, at this point, we cut to someone who is becoming a bit of a leader for us, a bit of a guide.
Yes, someone to inspire in life, and I think should just come up with their own motivational, quote a book, like a quote a day baking calendar.
I think they definitely should. Now, we talked last week about Amanda's advice to live by.
Yes.
And she had a week this week. Wow. I'm not talking about the quality of the baking, and sorry, Amanda, we will get there, but the quality of your life advice and philosophy and guidance. I've never felt more baking inspired in my life.
Yeah.
So the first thing that she said was, I have no problem. The problem is not, of course, these cookies.
No.
That is not the problem. The problem is these cookies in 2 hours and 15 minutes inside this structure with these judges, these hosts.
It's just beautiful observation.
She noted, the problem is the bake. No, the problem's not the bake. The problem is the situation around the bake.
It's like, yeah, sure, I could sew you a couture gown. It would just take me. I just couldn't do it in this hot, sweaty tent within 2 hours.
Why have you not previously sewn me a couture gown?
Okay, so my mum left me with many gifts before she parted this earth. Her ability to sew is not one of them. She tried very hard. And I must have pissed off a sewing god in a previous life because, if I tried to sew something, essentially time and space appears. And
you can't sew it back together.
No, I can't.
Because you lack the ability to do so.
Yes, I did. Yes, I do.
So Stephen was going with strawberry lemonade cookies, and I like that. I like that as a concept. Stephen had a few interesting concepts in this one. We'll get to the heart that he made in the showstopper, obviously. But he had some interesting conceptual bakes. He had a few issues with execution at points, But
I like his flavour ideas and how he's going to present them.
and his design ideas are really cool too. Amanda came up with that really cool pear design.
Yeah.
And I love the fact that she foreshadowed her own demise in this challenge by saying that I'm a bit worried that pear is going to be too subtle. So I've got a pear buttercream. I've got chunks of pear. I've got bits of pear. I've got hints of pear essence. I've got pears just sitting around me for general mood and vibe. I've changed my name to Pear. First name Pear, last name Pear. Middle name P. Only an initial. But, yeah, and so she was doing everything in her power to go, I'm going to make sure they can't miss that pear flavour. Hold that thought. Bruno's going to have some feelings. I'm a bit worried about how Steve got the inspiration for his bake, however. So, Steve, tell me how you got the inspiration for your bake. Well, I hit a bear with a bike.
Look, he had a really in-depth, bike journey today. It was this episode.
I feel like he was recreating. They talked about Easy Rider was sort of the name of his showstopper. He was trying to recreate Easy Rider and the story of Easy Rider and what happened afterwards in cake form, in cooking form.
He just hits a bear. Gotta make amends for that. So working through the process of he didn't say if the bear died. He just said, I don't think. It'd be like hitting
he said the bear survived. He said the bear survived.
Yeah, it'd be like hitting a wombat here. The wombat.
Wombats and kangaroos. If you hit a kangaroo, again, I've mentioned this before on the podcast, I've hit a kangaroo in a very old sort of first car, sort of, and we're driving up late at night up at one of the freeways. Kangaroo hops out. I hit the kangaroo. Massive dent in the front of my bonnet as it landed on the front of my bonnet. Rolled off, stood up, looked at me like, what the hell was that? And hopped off.
Yeah.
Perfectly healthy. My car, a wreck.
I just kind of nudged a wombat by accident because I got lost in the bush. Long story. And I was worried about the wombat, so I pulled over, and it's just there wandering off, it's perfectly
How was the
fine.
front of your car?
My car had a great big, crack in the bumper.
Yeah, Australian wildlife, you think about the spiders, and spiders and the snakes, and as I mentioned when I was on Bake Canadian Takeoff the other day, please go check that little listen out, drop bears. Right, again, you think about those. You think about those ferocious animals we talk about.
I know, you're just wandering through your local park and boom, drop bear.
Exactly. But what you don't think about is the fact that they can attack you while you hit them.
Yep.
In the case of the kangaroo and the wombat. Which if you hit them, it's a bad day for you.
Exactly.
Not a bad day for them. And kangaroos will hurt you. They are actually quite brutal animals.
Yes.
They are huge as well when they stand up on their hind legs. Now, his cookies were lemon and raspberry with a raspberry ganache, the kind you'd find at the second-hand store.
Out of my head.
Yeah, I know. I knew you were going there, so I got there first.
Raspberry ganache.
That ganache was something that Bruno, when he got to do the judging, was very fond of.
It looks delicious.
Steve's, and we'll talk a bit more about Steve in the technical, obviously, but Steve just seems to have this knack of just pulling together really flavorful elements.
Yeah.
With minimal fuss.
Yeah, he's very skilled.
I've noticed it.
He does talk about the magic in the tent and harnessing the magic of the tent, which, quite frankly, is like my mate Steve. And I really feel like you guys are like twins separated.
They really are
by continents and sea.
Also, listening to the way he celebrates in the technical is
Oh
very
my
Steve.
god, it's Steve! Oh my god, it's just like my Steve.
So Marion, now she made cake lapis now, which was the black tea and ginger sugar cookie.
Yum.
Now it also sounds a little bit like a final boss from like a dungeon raid.
Black tea and ginger cookies.
No, cake lapis.
Oh, cake lapis. Yes, sorry.
It sounds a little bit like you summon it.
Yeah.
And I like a cookie you can summon. What's wrong with a summoning cookie?
Look, I'm sure
if you were hungry, I'd love to summon a cookie.
Like this big demonic cookie.
You may take one bite, mortal, no more than that. It just emerges from the middle of like your cup of tea.
Just ready to beat you
I'm
down.
pre-dunked, human. Now, Stephen at this point was just talking about his strawberry lemonade and talking about that middle bit of the lemon. He goes, now this will go inside it, and he picks up the log, and the log falls in half. And he's like, I promise you it's okay. I promise you it's okay.
Get back to lemon. Get the lemon. Get the lemon back together. Stick the lemons together.
Now, I like it when we learn something in the early weeks about these bakers. And we learnt something about Vincent today.
Yes, we did.
Now, much like we learned, of course, that our friend of the podcast, friend of the show, friend in general, Jay, was very much involved in the LGBT rugby scene in Canada.
Yes.
Well, I wasn't aware that there was an LGBT badminton league in Canada. However, Vincent is the president. I hope they play Hail to the Chief when he walks out.
Yes. I too am a president of an obscure association. So from president to President Vincent.
The presidential conversation.
Yes, I think. Can I go over there on a diplomatic mission? They're giving government officials in Australia leave
Permission
to go wherever they want.
Go, do it. Now, rosewater sugar cookies is what he made, and I was really again. We've talked a little bit about this idea of they set up last week a bunch of things that are normally tropes that went absolutely nowhere because the bakers just did it perfectly fine.
Yes.
Rosewater sugar cookies.
And they didn't even
vaguely make reference to the rosewater.
Yeah.
Rosewater is
difficult.
It's often death because people over add it.
Death by rosewater, not you, Vincent. You're just
Vincent's like, I can do this.
I'm the president of the badminton club.
If not
badminton wasn't easy, if it was hard, if it was easy, it would be called goodminton.
Exactly, but it's badminton. Now, Dougal was making blueberry cookies with a cream cheese frosting. Now, very important point here that I'd like to bring up to our Canadian brethren. He specified Nova Scotia blueberries. Now,
yes,
I firmly believe in the Nova Scotia blueberry.
Oh, they totally exist.
That is completely real. But notice how he went with something that was real, as in a blueberry. He didn't make something up like a Saskatoon berry, which is not a thing. Right? Again, I argued this. I was on Bake Canadian for a little special. I argued again. They are not real things. Liz and Richard tried to tell me they were. I completely disagree with them. They don't exist. We have found that out firsthand. They put us in debtor's prison.
Yep.
So, I believe in the Nova Scotia blueberry.
Yep.
I don't believe in the Saskatoon berry.
Well, hopefully after this podcast, we'll get a sponsorship from Nova Scotia blueberries.
Nova Scotia. Look, they are definitely real, and we are here for that sponsorship. Let me tell you that. Now, I appreciated what Elena decided to do. Sorry, Kylie.
Kylie, yeah.
Kylie.
No, just tap the nose, Elena. Yeah.
Yes. She came into our world.
She did.
And what she decided to do was be the impossible princess of this challenge by making toy block cookies. So she made a very child-friendly cookie. She made the big patterns and very child-friendly and childlike wonderment.
And if you look at the colours on it, there is a little hint to the Confide in Me.
Yes, the Confide in Me background. Completely.
Like,
the Impossible Princess digital wall.
Yes.
Now, what I loved especially about these child-friendly cookies was the flavours that she went with.
Yeah.
Vanilla, rum, and espresso. So,
look, if you're going to raise a child,
you need to just get them drunk.
Yes.
So I loved the balancing
it's
of it.
Obviously, how they raise their kids in Romania. You wake up,
booze,
and coffee. Something to slow them down, something to perk them up.
That's how you keep them balanced. You don't want them too far on either end of the spectrum, so you just caffeinate them and booze them the whole day. Don't booze your children, everybody.
Yeah, please.
Publicly at least. Privately, go nuts. Let's talk about Aimee. So, because we have to, and we're going to do a lot of talking about Aimee in this episode. Aimee...
This was her week.
She might have had one of the best bake-off weeks in any series. Forget Canadian. She might have put forward two of the best bakes I've ever seen. And I would argue, and we'll get to it, the best bake I've seen in Canadian. Ever. We'll get to that one. This, however, was sheer genius.
First of all, who comes... Okay.
The charcuterie style, for a start.
Yes. And a croissant shape. It's not easy. And to make it look good, and like a croissant, not like just like a poo.
But then the filling.
Yeah.
Brown butter sesame, prosciutto, fig jam, basil, and brie.
It's like all my favourite flavours in one.
Everything.
It's like the charcuterie on the go.
It's the Kristie cookie.
Yes, what she needs to market these. You know how they have like have this breakfast bar. It's like, don't have time for brunch.
Want a classy brunch, but you've only got 5 minutes. Have a cookie. No, they were incredible, and they looked so good.
Mm-hmm.
Like when they got to the end of it, Stephen comes over, looks at the cookies, looks at Aimee, and goes, "Who are you?" They were amazing. And Karen, now Karen, we found out is an OT.
Yes, and it's a good week to find out because it's OT week. I've got lots of OT friends. I work with a lot of OTs in my role.
Yep.
And to be quite frank, like, they are the bloody lifeblood of all, like, allied health. Like,
yes.
Actually, they're not the lifeblood of allied health. They're one of the strongest lifebloods in the health system.
Yep.
That's what I mean. Like, every allied health professional has their role to play, but OTs, my God, they're like friggin' miracle workers.
And what I loved is that she decided to hack the system.
Yes.
By using her OT ability.
Yeah, because I'm there going, how did she come up with this? Like, Karen works as an OT. And I'm like, well, there you go.
Bread guide, ladies and gentlemen. She has the bread guide. Now, the problem was she got herself so far behind, she had to abandon the bread guide and just start freehand cutting at the end. But that was, again, in a competition where you usually have to measure the exact measurement out for the cutting and the width and those sorts of things. That was genius.
That was brilliant. And, I think that's a hack everyone should learn. And they'll all be running out to their local mobility store,
to get the bread guide.
To get the bread guide.
It was a passion fruit sugar cookie. And again, the colours were really vibrant.
Love that purple, yeah.
Now, we then got to the bit just before the end of the challenge where we fanned for our lives.
Yes.
And like Amanda's there going, no, this is definitely the most essential part. Mm-hmm. And Anne's like, no, completely. Like, this is the thing we're all here for. We're here for the fanning.
I did like Alina's hack of just having the box of not liquid nitrogen, but ice. It's dry ice down the thing. And I like how she was like pretending it was for the cookie, but when you saw her face was just hovering above it,
cooling herself down.
Cooling herself down.
It was quite a weather week, and we'll get to that when we get to the technical, because my word, it rained. So let's get to the judging. So they said with Karen's, you could instantly tell that they were passion fruit, and they said the flavour was good. Mm-hmm. But unfortunately, the last thing you could taste was starch. Yeah. And that's where they said you need to use your nose. And then Karen then referenced that for the rest of the go, see, Kyler, I'm smelling them.
Hey, she was told to listen last week, and now she's being told to smell them this week. Next week, she has to taste them.
Yep, she has to do all of the senses by the end.
I can't leave
Wait for the feel week.
No, wait till they get to the sixth sense.
Oh, no. Bruce Willis appears.
Yes.
Back off the island, it turns out. So Vincent, they said the detail was dramatic and like the pattern was stunning because it was the rose, but it was understated but still vibrant.
Oh, it looked like it really called me back to those beautiful 50s florals. I just love it. I love it.
They said the cookie had a crunch and the raspberry balanced beautifully, and they said he should be very proud of those cookies, which he was extremely thrilled with.
Look, if Aimee didn't have the week she had, my bet
would have been close.
Vincent.
He would have been close. Amanda, they said that the presentation idea was really good. She put him in a bucket to sort of like the bucket going out collecting the pears. But as they said, the problem with that idea was you could only see the top couple of pears.
Yeah, and Amanda, that's one of the tricks. I don't know if they do this at the fruit and veg shops that you're in PEI or even in Canada. But in Australia, when you go to an actual like proper fruit and veg place, you can go to the bargain buckets, and they have these buckets of like pre-packed like fruit. And they're cheaper than the rest, and they do have the nice ones on top, and the rest are
the ones underneath. You're taking a risk with the ones you can't see.
Yeah, they're either overripe or underripe.
Yeah. They said that the pear flavour, unfortunately, though, she summoned all the pear gods. She invoked it. She changed the name by deed poll. It didn't really matter. They couldn't taste the pear.
No.
It's a hard flavour. Look, that's why they make the flavoured ciders a pear, not apple. Because pear takes flavour, because it's not really got a really strong flavour. So for things like recording, which I don't mind recording, like the passion fruit one, which I love, is a pear cider, not an apple cider. Because apple cider is strong flavoured, whereas pear cider takes flavour.
See, I just didn't even bother taking note of that. I'm just like, what am I going to drink?
Exactly.
Go into a gathering.
Elena, they said she nailed the flavour and the look. It was one of the fastest judges. They went, yeah, you nailed that, that's fine. And moved on.
Yeah.
Dougal, they said the colours were beautiful, but they were a bit inconsistent in the bake. Now, at this point, we cut back to something that Bruno had raised in the initial part of this challenge when he was talking about the cookies. Yeah. And he was talking about they need to be quality, they can't crumble and fall apart. Because if I go to bite into them and ice cream falls down, I'm going to get it all over my jacket, and that's not going to be a good day.
No.
Now, Bruno was still worried about his jacket. He was dodging. He's like biting and like stepping back and going, almost got my jacket. He became paranoid about that jacket.
Wouldn't you? They look... all of them look schmeek.
Oh, they do.
Like
and look,
the ensemble, like, between, like... So, yeah, we said that, Alan looked a bit like Gilligan, but Jesus, that's like...
Trendy Gilligan.
Gilligan from Milan.
Oh, yeah.
With the Take On Me kind of, like, vibes going on his jacket. That was brilliant.
And, as always, is just a vision.
Like, pretty in pink. It was hilarious. And her little pouch, when she's like, yes, I did. Like, pull the cookies.
But Bruno and Kyla, both of them were dodging bakes all day.
Yeah, but if you notice, and this is something I love, the little attention to detail, is the colour on Kyla's dress, that kind of like bright blue, almost in like purpley kind of colour, was also in Bruno's pocket square.
Yes.
It was just so
They were
pretty.
matching them. It was beautiful. We did notice that, so we did pick that up. If you're listening to us, we noticed. Then Stephen. Now, they said the lemon shape was good, but the dough, unfortunately, was still raw at points. And if to prove it, they just poked them.
Oh. And at that point, you just watch Stephen's like heart melt. Like it's like you're not poking his cookies, you're poking his heart.
They said that the strawberry punch was really good, though. That was the positive. Steve's, they said, were whimsical again. Kyla's using whimsical a lot this season.
Yeah, well, you can't help it when the like Jude's whimsy is still floating around there.
Look, you can't get Jude's. Maybe that's why they made the door so flimsy.
Yeah,
because they're trying to get the whimsy out. Whimsy won't leave.
They had a whimsy exorcist come through, and they like. Whimsy exorcist. How do we get rid of the whimsy? Like, there was only one suggestion. You need a door that's flimsy to get rid of the whimsy. Yeah. I'm there.
You went there?
I went there.
You really did. I'd make it the title of the episode, but it's far too long.
Yeah.
So Marion, they said if she had an egg wash glaze on the top, it would have looked amazing. Yep. But unfortunately, bits of the dough was raw. They did say that the ginger was quite good. And with Aimee, Bruno literally just goes, "You're a genius."
Yep.
And they also said it was very original, which it completely is. That brings us to the technical.
Yes.
Now, before we get into the technical, I do want to know, we talked about how warm it looked in the first bake.
Yeah.
The rain
was pissing down.
So loud. They turn the rain... They turn all the background sounds down.
Do they say that in Canada? It's pissing down?
They do now.
Yeah. That's how you explain it in Australia.
They turned all the background sounds down as much as they could. And you could still hear it just going behind them when they were doing all the calls. It was pouring. And as they kept going, it got harder. Like, during that challenge, that rain got harder and harder and harder. Yeah. The challenge is a Bruno challenge. And they were pirouette cookies. Now, notice they do pirouette cookies the week after the choreographer goes home.
I know, because then we could have had some actual pirouettes with the pirouettes. It would have been fantastic.
I'd like to think they prepped it and went, well, he'll still be there in week 2 and we can get a bunch of choreography.
Yeah, look, even without the choreographer, there was one person in the tent still spinning around.
Oh, Kylie. Although Stephen did a pirouette.
Yes.
But because Stephen will do it. Steve did it because Steve will do anything. Yeah. Like your friend Steve. He'll just do a pirouette at the drop of a hat.
Yeah.
But no, you're right. Kylie is spinning around. So there was that level of pirouetting.
Yes.
Now, pirouette cookies, we don't call them pirouette cookies.
What do we call them? We just get the tin.
Yeah, we just get the tin.
You just go to the fancy biscuits spot.
And you want... They're basically it's a twirl, which they said, it's one of the things they call them.
They're kind of things that you get either like as a Christmas gift or...
What they did say is, and this is what Anne gave us the hint, which was she called like the cigar-shaped cookies.
Yeah.
And the sort of, as a kid, you'd pick them up and pretend you were smoking a cigar with the things. Because that's what you do.
Yeah, exactly.
And I do like the fact that... Karen was like, I worked out what it was based off your description. And Anne's like, thank you. And she goes, when Anne Parnell talks and tells you something, you listen. And Anne's like, well, I've been telling everyone that for years.
Yes, and that's philosophy point number 2.
Now, we buy them here in the tins, pre-made. And, like, again, chocolate. And I usually get the peppermint ones as well because the mint ones are really nice.
Christmassy when Christmas
Yeah, you get
time
very
rolls
Christmassy
around.
as well.
Oh, it's almost Christmas now, but it's still Halloween, like Halloweenuary. So
Halloweenuary, yes.
let's not talk about that yet.
So what I really liked about this challenge was they were very... You've got to be perfect. So you've got to get the dough to the right thickness.
It is now making me appreciate them more because, like, you just eat those, like, you know, they're
Yeah.
like, they're kind of like, oh, these are gifts, like, munch, munch. And seeing the skill and the patience that goes into making them.
Well, I mean, I think the ones in the tin are probably machine made, but I don't think...
But those machines had to learn that skill.
I like the idea
They had to be forged into parts and assembled by people.
I like the idea there's one old guy and one old woman who just hand roll every single tin of those made on the planet.
Jack and Joan.
Hour after hour after hour. So
One does the brown bit, one does the vanilla bit.
So 6 to 7 minutes only. And if you go any longer than 7, they will burn. And you have to roll them immediately. Otherwise, they can't roll.
No.
And we saw that. Now, when you make the filling, as Bruno said, if it's too thick, you can't get it into the pipe to fill.
Yep.
If it's too thin, it'll just go right through and out the other side. And it's never
That's what
nice
she
when it
said.
goes right through and out the other side.
No, no, it looks like you're having a little accident. Not a happy one that Bob Ross would be
Now,
telling you is okay.
the making of the wafers was just more maths, which is really tricky. I did enjoy the homemade Nutella.
Yeah. Like,
They're making hazelnut spread. You're like, oh, homemade Nutella.
yeah.
Well, thinner version of homemade
I've
Nutella.
heard that hazelnuts are going out of, like hazelnuts are becoming, like, endangered because bees are going endangered.
I know you were talking about that, but I like the idea that you were talking about hazelnuts and you were going to say going out of business. Like they're a company.
Not while they're still making Ferrero Rochers.
Big hazelnut is going out of business. Now, our profits are down by quarter, say?
Yeah, big macadamia is...
Big Macadamia's moved in. I did enjoy the fact that nobody was quite sure how to spread batter into a rectangle, which I didn't think would be a case ever. But they're like, I don't quite... They've got like a spoon, and some have got a palette. And I don't know how to spread batter into the rectangle. And I'm like, okay. Wasn't where that was a problem. I loved Stephen on this, because he goes, bake until light or golden brown. And he pulled his out of the oven and he goes, mine was not light or golden brown. It was just there.
That's a new observation, and it was a perfect observation.
Now, I pointed out at this stage that when they got them out of the oven, you needed Josh from Mythical Kitchen.
Why's that?
Teflon fingers.
Oh yeah.
Because they were all like, they're too hot, but we've got to roll them. They're too hot, we've got to roll them. Now, you needed Josh from Mythical, because if you've ever watched him on Mythical Kitchen, he just dunks his hand into boiling oil and pulls things out. And don't you burn your hands? He goes, I lost those senses a while ago. The other day, what was he was making the cheese sauce?
Yeah.
On the like
fingering.
the cheese is boiling on the stove, and they're like, what's the flavour like? And he just dunks his finger into the boiling cheese, and they're like, shouldn't you be using like a spoon?
It's like a firework walk is his pathway into his house.
It's the only way in.
Yeah.
No one gets into Josh's house.
He has Legos strewn around the house everywhere for sensory training.
Now, Aimee worried at this point that her wafers were both soggy and cracking all at once.
Yes.
That's a good effort. Now, Dougal had, again, a really sort of a good way to sum up the whole piping incident, which was very smooth, but also a little drippy.
Yep. They were very drippy.
There were some that were very drippy. There was some... poor Kylie, she wasn't spinning around when she was trying to pipe the cream, pipe the original hazelnut, because she couldn't get it through.
She was like, give me just... I've already made that joke.
Yeah, you've already done that
week.
one. Anyway, we'll have to go through them.
That's going to keep popping up, isn't it? Because it's so appropriate.
Yeah, you just need to confide in it. Anyway, so Karen, they said there was a lot of variation on hers. They were soft, but the hazelnut was really good. Amanda, they said that she didn't get a tight enough roll on it. And you could see they were much bigger than everyone else's. Good filling, though. And that was where Kyla managed to avoid a wardrobe accident by, jumping out of the way, just as I just demonstrated there.
Yeah, it was so fun. And then the next one that she's picked up, you can see her holding it at arm's length, literally.
It's like I'm not going to get exploded on here. Steve's were consistent, well-filled with a good snap. It's a technical. It's Steve. Sure.
Boom.
Marion, they said that we only have 15, and some of those were questionable. Their words. Their words. Some of them are questionable.
I think some of them were questioning themselves too.
They said they were also very doughy.
Yeah.
Vincent, they said the colour was really good and they were consistent in terms of the bake. However, the filling was empty at points.
Oh.
And you need, again, that middle bit.
Yeah.
Was and that was what Bruno said at the start. If it's too thick, you won't fill it all the way to the middle. You'll only get the edge. Elena's, they said they were good roll attempt. Needed a little bit more browning, though. They was a little bit pale. Stephen needed filling in the centre. Again, he's got to the end, but good flavour on all of it. Aimee's had a really good roll, but it was too thin on the filling and it rolled through. Mm-hmm. They broke, but no snap. They've been bending them. And then, they said a little bit more of a bake and you would have got the snap. And then she probably would have come top couple. Bacon snap. Dougal's were inconsistent widths, however, good flavour. Mm-hmm. So, in the technical, Marion was 9th, Karen was 8th, Amanda 7th, Vincent was 6th, Aimee was 5th, Stephen 4th, 3rd was Dougal, 2nd was Elena. And once again, Steve is becoming a technical wizard.
Yes, he is. He's now he's Bake Off the Grey.
Yes. And next week, if he does Bake Off the White.
No, he disappears next week and comes back and fights a Balrog next week.
Get to the showstopper. Yeah. So the showstopper was a cookie mosaic. They wanted bold and intricate. And they had 4 hours. Now, Amanda, and we're going to talk a little bit more about your words of wisdom as you are the philosopher of the pavilion. But
a veritable Bakerities.
Except
she goes out during the breaks and stands on the steps to the pavilion, just encouraging people to ask questions and think about life.
So Bakerities said, and I quote Bakerities here, "Put mosaic cookies into a search engine, nothing comes up. We're inventing things." Now, Bakerities, or again, in this instance, she was
cousin Amanda.
In this instance, she was closer to Herodotus than
Sounds like a really bad Australian drama from the 90s. Seriously.
It does, actually.
Seriously, the Australian film in the 90s was always
really bad.
My Wayward Son.
And it's usually about people living in a part of Sydney called Newtown. Oh. And it's usually there's a junkie with a heart of gold somewhere. Yep. They're just trying to get off the drugs, but they can't quite shake it. Yeah, but they also own an apartment that's 5 times anything they could afford.
Absolutely. And, they contrast the struggles and pain with the gentrification of the slum area and Sydney all becoming fancy.
And Australian actor Ben Mendelsohn makes an appearance. Yeah. Anyway.
And if you need an older, wiser guy, Jack Thompson.
And if you need a woman, Claudia Carvin.
Yes.
Anyway, none of you know who any of those actors are. No. Enjoy it. So, actually, Jack Thompson was in Star Wars. So
he was, yeah.
I would know that. So, he's in the prequels. So, anyway.
I've got a couple of friends that were in Star Wars, but one of mine was the body double, was one of the Queen Amidala's people. Yeah.
One of the many Amidalas.
She was also
She was part of the armada of Amidala.
Yeah, and she was also a body double for Trinity. That's where I was coming from.
Nice.
Yeah.
So
when Trinity's getting revived, that's not Carrie. That's my friend.
Nice.
Yeah, same.
So Bakerities, although, again, not Bakerities in this, she's closer to Herodotus because Herodotus was the father of lies. Yes. And you have soiled your reputation with lies because I did a search for mosaic cookies. And Amanda, there's a lot of things that pop up and a lot of pictures of mosaic cookies.
More Bakeritis at this point.
Yes, she's Bakeritis at this point, but she is Bakerities. I do agree with you there. So, Stephen came up with Achy Breaky Heart.
Hold on. Do you reckon they have their own Google on PEI? Because it's its own little world.
I wonder if has the internet reached PEI?
Yeah, but they didn't have invented it themselves, and it's like the lobster search engine. It's like a Bisque-based search
much like
engine.
the rest of their economy on PEI. It's Bisque-based.
I really want lobster now.
Well done. All right. So Stephen made Achy Breaky Heart, not Billy Ray Cyrus tributes. This was this story he was telling about a broken heart and the mending of a broken heart, but in cookie form.
He's doing an Adele here. I love it.
Now, we had a brown butter choc chip cookie base with then the mosaic on top of it.
Yeah.
The base didn't work the first time. He put it back in, tries it again. The second one worked a treat.
Yeah.
Now, Elena made Santorini. Now, again, Kylie it makes sense that Kylie would do this.
Well, the last
Aphrodite, obviously.
Yeah, last concert I saw Kylie in was the Aphrodite tour. I mean, that wasn't her most recent tour, but, you know, it was very Greek.
Yeah, exactly.
You know?
Very Greek.
The blue of Santorini was everywhere.
Now, this gives me a chance to take off my baking cap.
Yeah.
And put on my historian cap. Because it's Santorini time, people. So, or should I say, Thera. Ooh, I know.
Ooh.
I know.
Not Themyscira, because that's my domain.
Yeah, Themyscira's your domain.
Yeah.
However, Thera, my domain.
Yes.
So, if you ever look up the history of Santorini, and don't worry about the fact that it's very blue and very white houses and blue, and it's that picturesque postcard, look at the bit in the middle of Santorini. Like, because the Santorini, it's got the crescent shape, like a seafood cookie.
Yeah.
So you've got that sort of bit in the middle, and you go, okay, that's interesting island formation. Yeah, we believe that probably the largest volcanic eruption that has currently taken place on Earth happened right in the middle of it and wiped out the island of Thera, which is what Santorini is on. Then there's Akrotiri, which is the city site, is being excavated on Santorini.
Oh, wow.
So there's an ancient site. It's actually covered over. It's an example of how to excavate a site and keep it protected. They've got covering over the top of it and everything.
Cool.
It's an eruption that was so powerful that the blast waves went up, and they found in core drilling in the North Pole, they found evidence of this eruption. They believe it blacked out the Mediterranean for about 50 years.
Oh, you couldn't Venga bust then?
No Venga busting at all.
No Mediterranean sun.
No Mediterranean sun. They could not go on the Venga bus tours, which was a loss for the Venga boys. But it also wiped out, more importantly, the Minoans. Because the Minoans disappeared. And we don't quite know where the Minoans went. We believe the Minoans disappeared because everything got blacked out. Their crops died, and they just left or died. It was either or. So there's your history moment, people. Take that cap off, put the baking cap on. So she was going with a really cool design and the look of the postcard of Santorini.
Yeah.
Bright, vibrant colours.
I would have liked to have seen like you could flip it over and seen like Thera and then as you're flipping it over it does this kind of like volcanic smash. I don't know.
Yeah, see, I would have. If I was doing that, I wouldn't have only made a mosaic. And there were, by the way, funnily enough, lots of mosaics on Thera. Akrotiri is full of mosaics. Like, that was their design style. So it's all mosaic. So you could have actually done an Akrotiri mosaic for Santorini. Anyway, the more you know. Chris's History Corner. Moving on.
Look how we're like so... This is like the Enlightenment. We've got philosophy. We've got, history. Baking.
Australian movies. We've got everything covered, folks.
It really is.
Vincent went with the Lotus Garden. Now, that was coconut, sugar, and gingerbread cookie base.
Podcast.
And gingerbread cookie base, and he talked about the idea of the importance of the Lotus Garden in meeting his partner.
Yeah.
Which was lovely.
And I'm with Kyla. I kind of swooned at that too. I'm like, oh, because I remember when I met you for the first time, and I'm like, oh, little heart palpitations, just new.
Oh. Yeah. Let's talk about Bakerities.
Yes.
Because she popped up again.
Here we are with her final instalment of wisdom for the...
Was it her final instalment of wisdom? No, I think she had one more. No, she had one more.
Oh my God, there's so much wisdom.
So much of Bakerities. So, Bakerities, anytime you get to throw flour at things is fun.
Truth.
She is just hitting us with truth bomb after truth bomb, with one lie wedged in the middle, and then more truth bombs.
Yes.
And I believe that Bakerities hit us with the lie deliberately because we need to learn how to disseminate information.
Yeah, critical thinking is key to philosophy.
And Bakerities wants us to think.
Exactly. Have a different viewpoint, but express why that viewpoint is different. You learn all of this on the pavilion steps.
I appreciate Bakerities more than anyone could know.
Why is that?
Because, again, that critical thinking element is so desperately needed in today's society. Anyway.
No, I think it's also, you should just take flour around with you and throw it at people.
I mean, that too. And anyone that if Bakerities gives me permission to throw flour at people, who are the authorities to say differently? So, Dougal went with a bee mosaic. Now, we seem to be getting a lot of bee-themed bakes. We've had 2 bee-themed bakes in 2 weeks.
Oh, Big Honey is on.
Big Honey is a sponsor.
Or is it Big B? Is it a Mr. Doobie? Yes!
Canadians, Mr. Doobie. It's not one of the Doobie brothers.
Oh my God, okay, hold on. I'm going to go right... Okay.
Oh, the romper room story is here, folks.
No. So I was on romper room, right? And I'll get to that. But I also noticed a play school reference, and they wouldn't have play school in Canada.
No, I left the play school reference out originally, but we'll do it.
Okay, so in round one, the signature, there was like there's a pear in there, and I've gone to Chris and a chair as well, and then Steve's come up with there's a bear in there. I'm like, oh my god, it's a bear! So the whole song goes, there's a bear in there and a chair as well. There are people with games and stories to tell, open wide. Anyway, I did it like I just got very excited.
It was very exciting. I'm like, oh my god, play school references.
Yeah.
But anyway, Mr. Doobie.
Yeah, Mr. Doobie. So I've probably told this story, but fuck it, let's rehash
You've
it.
definitely told this story, but do it
Okay.
again.
So when I was 5, I went on to a children's program called Romper Room, and on Romper Room, 6 children who have been chosen get to go on. Now I was on there with 3 other girls who were all born in hospital at the same time, and my mum's quite pushy and so are their mums, so they got us on all together. Anyway, come to it. There's this segment where, you get to go over and see Mr. Doobie in his hive, and one of my friends went to pat him, and then he accidentally bit her, and so I smacked Mr. Doobie. That didn't make it to the...
I had a Mr. Doobie toy. So,
Did you?
Yes, I did.
Oh, did you
Don't
say, how
punch
do you
it.
do?
Don't punch it. Anyway.
Unless he bites you. Like the poor puppeteer probably, doesn't expect a whack from a 5-year-old.
So I love the fact that his bake, though, was a story based on his brother's house being infested by bees. Yeah. And then they came and took the bees away, and then 6 months later returned with honey and went, here you go.
It is one of the greatest things I love on our buy, swap, sell page is when someone goes, I've got a hive of bees nesting here, and then the local apiarists go, I'll come and get it.
There was a swarm of bees just up the road yesterday. I was driving around, and there was a massive swarm of bees in someone's bins.
Well, they must have just been resting, because they usually do that when they're moving hives.
Yes.
They come and rest. Because we had some rest on our roof, remember?
Yeah, they rested on our roof in our lounge room. It was great.
Unlike our friend Gabby, who actually had bees, and she found out because honey was dripping through the wall.
Why am I not surprised? So, this is where we started to see that Aimee was another level. So, Karen is there, and she's cutting out individual squares by hand.
I'd never heard of the rainbow apartments. They look gorgeous.
They look gorgeous.
I thought it was a nice little...
And then it was the sugar cookie with the gingerbread in tribute to the Hong Kong, the rainbow apartments. And Aimee goes, are you cutting those out by hand? And she goes, yes. And then Aimee turns around and produces these laser cut molds.
Wow.
And she's like, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to instead spread the thing across, and it's going to form the patterns for me.
And they look nice and thin.
At this point, you started to go, she's up to her game.
Yeah.
We're about to see something a bit special. And
now,
then
we saw all the bases going in, and there was one that looked kind of like a fish. And I'm like, who's doing that fish one? And it was the base of her lamp.
So we didn't get to see any original. And then they showed the drawing. Mm-hmm. The vintage cookie lamp.
Yeah.
And I love that Bruno goes, aren't you worried that it might break? And she goes, I am. But we're going to try it.
Yeah.
Now, Stephen at this point was having his panic about the base. Let's cut to our second episode of Dougal is the most supportive friend on the planet.
Yes.
Last week, we talked up Dougal and talked about Dougal's amazing emotional support that he provided when everything was going pear-shaped for Marion, where he's like, you've got this, you're great. Dougal, just casually walking. I'm starting to wonder if he's not, actually not a contestant, but just like a guardian angel.
Oh.
Who just appears when required.
He was walking down a highway and with a dog, and and he's gone, this bake-off pavilion needs a bit of angel magic.
So he was just randomly walking across the back, and he just turns around and goes, you're good, you're amazing, you're wonderful, you've got this, you can do this. And I'm just like, dude, will you just exist to make everyone else's life wonderful?
Who was that actor? Michael...
Yeah, I know where you're going with it, but I can't remember his name.
He's got the mullet. He's got the MacGyver mullet, but it's not...
Please tweet in with his name, because I know it was Highway to Heaven. I can't remember his name. It is Michael something. I can't remember. Yeah. He was a low rent actor who did a bunch of movies. Yeah. Tweet us in with answers.
He was what's his face? The guy from MacGyver. I can't remember. Richard Dean Anderson.
He was the guy you got when you couldn't afford Richard Dean Anderson.
Yeah.
So Marion made her stained glass. That was so pretty.
And I loved, Bahrain is such a beautiful place. I remember being enchanted by it because my friend's aunt went there and showed us pictures because her husband worked there. It was just, wow, gorgeous.
So coffee cinnamon base and then the cardamom in the tiles.
Yeah.
Let's cut to your cousin.
Yes.
Let's cut to Bakerities. who was making the cookie map of PEI.
I'm like,
We cheered. We actively cheered.
You know what? I reckon it's just based on a real map of PEI.
There are two things we automatically cheer at. Mm-hmm. Any reference to Regina.
Yep.
Please experience it, by the way. And PEI.
Yes. I can't wait to go to Canada because we've got all these places to go to. Like PEI, definitely. Regina, definitely. Alan Shane is just currently...
Well, are we allowed back in Regina?
Well, we'll just use different names.
Okay.
We'll just you know,
Blisty.
moustaches, Blisty, and wrist.
Yeah, that'll lip.
Wrist.
Wrist. Not weird at all.
Not weird at all.
So
my name is Blisty.
Wrist.
I'm not from Australia. I'm from Austria. Can't you tell by my accent?
This is an Australian accent, I believe.
I'm from Vienna.
But I love the fact that she
sausage.
I love the fact that she went with very specific PEI landmarks. And by the time it got to the judging, Kyla was like, oh my God, you can see the landmarks.
Yes.
She could distinguish everything. Lemon, poppy, and espresso were the flavours there.
Yeah.
Now, Steve had his Easy Rider. Now, what I loved about this...
what I didn't get to finish was that Alan Shane is currently running basically a bracketeering poll to determine what is the best subway station.
We're going to have to visit all of them to be part of the vote. Now, Steve's Easy Rider. I did say before there was a bit of an adventure going on. It reminded me again, and there's a Simpsons thread, of the Voyage of Homer. You know, when he goes through the chili contest?
Yep.
Did that bike, look like the Sky Wolf?
Yes. And there's like just a little fox coming out,
Yeah.
you know? Like...
Yeah. Hey, Homer. I'm your Sky Guardian. I'm here to direct you to your soulmate. Hello, Steve. I know you hit that bear. I'm here to guide you towards the cookie. But it looked a lot like that. Or for any hockey fans out there, it looked a lot like the Arizona Coyotes' most famous jerseys front. Anyway, he was asked about would this work, and his answer was, there's been magic in the tent so far. I'm choosing to trust in the magic. Yep. And you went, my friend Steve is still there.
Yes. Now I'm just convinced. Like, they're related. Like, whether by soul or by, like magic or actually related and separated at birth or something.
Who knows?
I don't know.
Now... Aimee, at this point, finishes. Now, they showed a shot of the lamp, and we both, jaws fell.
Yes.
And...
I love that she got, the laser cuts done. I love the concept.
Intricate detail. We'll come to that. We'll come to the judging of it in a minute.
Okay.
But where it becomes important is that she was finished.
Yes.
So she walks over and goes to Karen, can I help?
Yeah, and Karen needed
Karen's
help.
like, are you sure you're done? She says, oh yeah, I'm finished. And again, it's really intricate what she's done. And she's finished and you need a hand? And we saw that, by the way, in the Great Australian Bake Off with Dave's grand final bake.
Yep.
Where that intricate box that he did. And he baked it and he was standing around in the grand final episode with 10 minutes to go and he's finished.
Yeah, and then he's like,
I'm having a cup of tea.
Yeah.
So we had a cup of tea. Let's cut back. There's only one person we can get to before the judging.
Yeah.
It's Bakerities.
Bakerities, indeed.
If I don't get these finished, it won't be a mosaic. It will be cookies on a plate. It won't be a map. It'll be cookies on a plate.
And look, it's such a poignant observation of life.
The wisdom of Bakerities.
I know. It's like, Confucius has a natural kind of,
baking equivalency.
Equivalent,
Yeah.
It's just...
Bakerities.
Yeah.
So the judging. Vincent, they said striking design. They said the coconut and the lime was well balanced and it made Kyla want a cocktail.
Yes. As soon as he said that, I started to go, doom, 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 doom.
Yes,
doom,
at which point Kyla goes, I want a cocktail. And you're like, yes!
Midnight margaritas.
So Bakerities, they said it looked like a love letter to PEI.
Yeah.
They said the lemon poppy had both crunch and flavour, which was good.
Yeah.
Steve's had a very clear story. Now, this is where I was the only part of the whole thing I was disappointed in. They didn't tell us more of the story about Steve's actual construction of the bake because he used cream cheese inside the cookie. And Bruno's like, in place of butter, he goes, oh, no, there's butter. And Bruno was, they did, I couldn't work out if Bruno liked it or not because he went, it's soft, but he didn't say it in a way that made it sound like he hated it. But they then cut.
Maybe he was hating himself because he's like, this is so good, but I feel like I'm cheating on
butter.
Yeah.
But there was butter there, so it's both. Dougal. Bruno looks at it and goes, it looks Beezy. At which point he fist pumped.
Like, I got a pung!
Bruno came to life. Yeah!
No, you know what it is? Bruno's like, they're going to love me on the pod.
Oh, completely, Bruno, completely. And I say this as somebody who had seen Bruno give an acceptance speech where he said, blah, 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 blah. That's a world-renowned chef saying that when I said, can you please give me a speech? The flavour, however, of Dougal's was outstanding. They said the honey was first rate.
Yeah.
Stephen's concept was fantastic, and they said the cookies were excellent. They're like, you were panicking. He goes, the first batch didn't work, and Kyla's like, second batch worked a treat. Now, the problem for Karen's was they said that they couldn't have picked the design was apartment block.
No.
But the spicing inside the cookies was apparently perfect.
See, I looked at Karen's and I'm thinking, maybe instead of having all the smaller biscuits, if she had slightly longer...
Windows.
Yeah, like longer...
Rather than doing the design on the biscuit,
Tagness.
like painting the small windows on the biscuit,
Yeah.
have biscuits that were windows.
Yeah.
That would have worked.
And maybe while you're cooking them, melt some of the lollies in them or something. I
Oh,
don't know. I'm just
that would have worked.
Just extra lollies. Put booze in it, Karen, as well.
Now, Kylie,
Yes.
Elena, they said they looked amazing. And when they bit into them, they said there was a bit too much salt. And they said that was overpowering the biscuit. So it looked really good, but
If
they said
only
the
she could have
construction...
been more lucky.
Oh, lucky. Marion, they said they looked amazing. But unfortunately, they all needed a few minutes more. Babe.
It was at that moment I've gone,
She's in trouble.
Marion's gone.
Okay, let's get to Aimee. This, as far as I'm concerned, is my favourite bake that I have seen in 5 seasons of the Great Canadian Baking Show. I
That was a big
absolutely
call.
love this lamp. It
Yeah.
was stunning. And the look on Kyla's face when she bit into the cookie. And
Yeah.
she just looked at Bruno like, this is amazing.
Because both her flavours and her execution were perfect.
Oh,
It's
it's just flawless.
like...
And they said even using the like retro sort of biscuit in the,
Yeah, it
in
was
the
so
digestive
lovely
was a
to-
great call.
Yeah. Because you could imagine, like an older person, during World War II, putting that on,
Yep.
dunking their digestive in their very weak tea because it's a tea bag they're having to use, or tea leaves, sorry. They've had to use like 6 times out because
They work, yeah. So, the star baker this week was obvious.
Oh,
It was
I'm
Aimee.
like, and you know what? Like, I adored Vincent's lotus
Yeah.
Lotus mosaic.
Yeah.
And I reckon if Aimee hadn't been on point, it would have been Vincent's.
Oh,
But how you had to pull out a
she was unbelievable.
sheer miracle to beat that, because I just don't think you can.
And unfortunately, the slight underbaking in the showstopper is what doomed Marion.
Yeah.
We had a couple. Karen was probably close,
Yeah.
but Marion's were underbaked, and that's usually death.
And I'm really sad to see Marion go. I really like her.
I love her, and again,
Yeah.
her ideas are great. It's
Yeah.
and I think again, you get that the early couple of rounds are when you get more of the underbaking, where people are not quite sure how long to have things in the oven for.
Yeah.
So you get that.
Yeah.
So I feel really bad, obviously, that we lose Marion. We feel bad when we lose anybody, really.
Yeah.
This was another good episode. Another strong episode.
Absolutely. I really enjoyed it. It's the highlight of my week. you
It
know?
really is. So, again, Bakerities gave us some great wisdom, but Aimee gave us just some outstanding baking.
Yeah.
So there's a lot to take out of this episode, obviously. So we're going to leave it there this week.
Yeah.
As I mentioned, go and check out Bake Canadian Takeoff have a mini episode they put up just before the episode today. Go and check that out. I had a bit of a chat to Liz and Richard about Australian baking because they cast some aspersions on Australian baking in their episode for last week. So I had to go on and set the record straight a little bit. So I did.
Listen here, mate.
So I did. So I sat around and had a bit of a chat with Liz and Richard on Bake Canadian. Of course, the Virgie Award winning, and I congratulated them again on winning their Virgie. For host of the year for a podcast they're not even on. But, be that as I'll win one someday.
Yeah, at some point.
Anyway,
I'll just go polish mine. Thanks for the reminder.
you've got a shelf full.
I do.
Which one are you going to polish?
All of them.
Okay.
Got to look after them all. I might not get one next time. Oh, who am I
Who are
kidding?
you kidding? Of course, well, you're eligible next year again. All right, so until next week, I'm still Chris.
And I'm still Kristie.
And we will catch you all later.
Buzz, buzz.